When I started back doing keto for what will be the last time in my life, well, I never like to say never, but unless I go to carnivore or unless they find that keto is, nah, I don't care what they say. I feel so good that I'm not going back. Anyway, I knew I wanted to create recipes based on Southern foods that I loved, restaurant foods that I loved, and make keto versions of those. But while I was busy doing all that, I needed a baseline. My baseline was Dr. Eric Berg. Dr. Berg to me is kind of like the Bob Ross of keto. Now he's not painting pictures of snow-capped mountains with a lake in front of it with a little red cabin with ducks in the background, clouds in the sky, and all the beauty you can imagine. But what he is painting is a picture to perfect health. After watching a few of the people out there, I decided that his way of healthy keto would be a great start for me as I embarked on this journey one more time. You have probably heard of Dr. Berg at some point, but if you hadn't, who is he? What does he know about keto? And why should you care? Why should you listen to him as a beginner about how to start keto? Well, I can tell you, number one, it works. Number two, it's really easy to follow. And number three, the whole Bob Ross thing I was talking about. He's just good to listen to. Let's talk about it right after this. So if you've never heard of Dr. Berg, he has over 11 million subscribers on YouTube. He's the author of one of my favorite books that I followed on my journey called The Healthy Keto Plan. He's also written Healthy Keto and Intermittent Fasting, which is also a great book. Really thin if you want a good quick read that has a lot of information in it. He's also, as a chiropractor, has developed this piece, which you put this behind your neck. He's got instructions for that. I'll put the links for all these things down below too so you can check them out. And you may have seen my electrolyte video of how to make your own electrolytes at home and save a bunch of money. But other than that, my recommendation for an electrolyte powder is this one. And it's Dr. Berg's. This one is the raspberry and lemon flavor. If you're just in a hurry, take a scoop of this, throw it in some water. I add a little bit more salt in it because I like a little bit more salt, and you're good to go. But perfect ingredients. He spends time making sure these things are right for you. Dr. Berg has such a library of knowledge. I'm going to put a link down below so you can check out his channel if you haven't already. But in this video, I've compiled a lot of the great information from his videos to make a complete beginner's guide to keto from start to finish. We're going to start out with practical keto, how to get started, what is ketosis, what to eat, proteins, fats. We're going to get into it all. And then after we've established that foundation, we're going to get into how to kick it up another notch by adding in some intermittent fasting, and then a lot of tips and tricks to help you on your keto journey. So if you're just beginning keto, or if you want to begin keto, or even if you're like me, I watch every video that he puts out. He and Dr. Berry, my go-tos. Check them both out. But I want to start this off with a good overview of keto. This was from a conference that he spoke at in Denver in 2020. This is on practical keto. Check it out.
So today I want to talk about some unique problems that happen in the keto world. So I want to share today some common problems and solutions. One of the biggest ones being plateau. It's keto stall. So a couple things. One is that you have people who say, well, it's not working. I only lost 2 pounds. The first week I lost 6 and now I just lost 2 pounds. I'm like, well, you have to understand that is normal. So it takes a little bit of education at first to set people up. Like I would take, like men for example, they might have this huge belly, but they're not very aware that that is a fatty liver. They're just like, oh yeah, it's fine, I can deal with it. Especially like one guy came in, he goes, yeah, your program's not working. I tried it for 2 weeks and it didn't work. Well, it did work, but then it stopped working. Well, what did you do? Well, I stopped the diet. I said, did you think it was going to keep working if you stopped? It's not lose weight to get healthy, it's get healthy to lose the weight. If someone does not understand this concept, they're very susceptible to doing the wrong solution. Very unhealthy programs. Diet, appetite suppressants, low quality products. They try to actually diet to lose weight. How many of you agree that dieting actually destroys your metabolism? You take someone who's menopause, and you ask them, how many diets have you been on? It's probably been 10 or 12. And every time they do it, of course they're doing it wrong. It slows down the metabolism. So just because someone's losing weight doesn't mean they're getting healthy. It really depends on how they're losing weight. So there's some products that people think are healthy. You have, of course, the Slim Fast, hidden sugars. If you take a look at the ingredients, high levels of soy protein isolates, which are exposed to hexane, which in PubMed is a neurotoxin. And FDA has no ceiling of how much hexane is in there. Had a lot of clients come in that have done programs like Ideal Protein, that really high in soy protein isolates, and end up with liver and gallbladder issues. Maltodextrin, glycemic index way higher than glucose and sugar. So obesity is a symptom. It's not, if you focus on obesity, you're not going to be as successful. It's coming from too much insulin. So I have people focus on other indicators of health. I try to get them off the weight loss at first because they may not lose weight initially, especially if they have a slow metabolism. So I always ask them, how is your energy? Is your hunger going away? That's a good indication that the insulin is coming back in a good range. Carb cravings. If you still have carb cravings, there's a problem with your blood sugars. Is your belly shrinking? So the most important thing that a person could do to increase their health is to use their own fat as fuel. So there's several advantages of doing this. Number one, now you start running on ketones. And there's a lot of advantage. It's a superior fuel. More energy output, appetite suppressant, more efficient, better lipid profiles. Tumors can't consume ketones. Reduce oxidative stress, and more O2, less CO2. And then you have the benefits of reduction of insulin, which is the common denominator of so many health problems. I mean, inflammatory conditions, heart, of course diabetes, the fatty liver, high cholesterol, aneurysms, stroke, dementia. Other than that, it doesn't have any effects. But we also want to look at other ways of decreasing insulin, and one of the biggest ways is fasting, intermittent fasting. So for those people that have a very slow metabolism, they're usually menopausal, they usually have the thyroid removed, the gallbladder removed, they're pre-diabetic, and they have a history of many different diets. There's a really important rule that I tell my clients, and also even the videos right now, is that don't eat if you're not hungry. Do not eat if you're not hungry, because then you're going to be hungry when you eat, because it stimulates insulin, so then the blood sugar comes down. Breakfast, and I'll say, listen, if you're in the morning, if you're not hungry, just don't skip it and start pushing it forward to lunch. And so pretty much the breakfast is gone. And so they have lunch and dinner. And then what I'll do is I'll take the lunch and the dinner and I'll start squeezing them together. And to the point where it's like a 4-hour window. Most people do very, very well with this. And I do have quite a few people doing this on my lab with tremendous amounts of success. Some people need to do 1 meal a day. The key is making sure they have enough nutrients in that meal, to prevent things like hair loss, which I will cover.
I mean, he's dropping bombs already, but let's get into it just a little bit deeper.
Sleeping. Interesting. Had a lady who, she lifted 3.5 million pounds at the gym over the course of a year and lost 1 single pound. And she came in very depressed, and I found out she was not sleeping. She was actually on the right, she was eating pretty good, but she wasn't sleeping. So I actually worked with her with sleeping. I actually told her to stop watching the news right before bed. That was the big problem. I told her to start taking calcium magnesium. I did some work on her, and she started sleeping like a baby, and that was the only time that things started to kick in. She lost a lot of weight, great before and after. I mean, don't underrate sleep. Like, my wife and I went on a trip recently because we were like completely pale and white in January, so we went to the Bahamas, to this little remote little island where they have like no internet, no reception, and it got dark around 6:30. There was nothing to do, so we went to bed at 7 o'clock. And I said, well, let's just go to bed. We go to bed, we think we slept for 13 or 14 hours. I've never felt that better in my life. It was amazing. So, I mean, I've been running on maybe 6 hours, if that. Just getting more sleep can create huge changes in your blood sugars in your body. So I need to do more of that. Okay, stress. A lot of the stress comes from other people. How many realize that people can stress people out? Exercise. Either over-exercising, overtraining, or not exercising at all. So regular, consistent exercise creates some really nice effects with a lot of things. Autophagy, the cleaning up of old damaged tissue, protects your immune system, keeps your body full of oxygen. Okay, bloating. So I do recommend vegetables for most people, but if they start bloating, I take them off of it because they might have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They might not deal with them. And so there's been a handful of people, not the majority, that just can't do well on vegetables, so I will adjust what I do. Okay. Next thing is the transitional phase when you're getting into ketosis. There's this thing called keto fatigue. Has anyone ever experienced that? So I had a chance to just work with a lot of people and find out this is mostly potassium deficiency. And when you do keto, you're no longer running on carbs, so you're going to dump a lot of fluid because carbs retain fluid. And with that fluid becomes electrolytes, not just potassium, but sodium. There's this false information being spread out there that potassium is dangerous on our body. If you have, well, of course, if you have stage kidney disease, yes. But if you have healthy kidneys, it's not dangerous. In fact, potassium is protective of the kidney. If you want data on that, I have amazing research on that. You can ask me later. But the thing about potassium is out of all the nutrients, we need potassium in a large amounts, 4,700 milligrams a day. If you take a look at what you have to eat to consume that, you're going to find out the majority of people are just not consuming enough potassium. So potassium is involved with a lot of things, fluid exchange, energy. It buffers uric acid. It's really an effective thing for blood pressure. Wow, it just brings blood pressure down. There's a lot of data on this. Also, heart rhythm really helps with arrhythmias because it's involved in the pacemaker. Beet tops have the most potassium. Per cup, 1,300. So, I mean, I don't consume beet tops, so it's spinach. The problem with spinach that I have on the keto is that it's high in oxalates. If you're prone to kidney stones, I have them avoid spinach. Brussels sprouts, 600 something, cabbage, 300, tomatoes, 400, Swiss chard. So you can see avocados, 830 milligrams, asparagus, 400. So typically speaking, you're going to get a little more potassium with greens. But you can also get them from lamb. You can get potassium from lamb. 268 for 3 ounces. Canned tuna is 280. Round steak, 3 ounces at 300. So you really just have to, you should probably yourself or with a client just start calculating how much potassium is a person really eating. And you may find that it's not even close. And so you may want to substitute with calcium citrate or another type of calcium. I'm sorry, potassium. Okay, keto flu is purely a salt deficiency, sodium or chloride. No one's really talking about chloride. Salt is composed of 40% sodium and 60% chlorides. Chlorides are really necessary to make the hydrochloric acid. So it's a very important mineral, just as sodium. So when you do keto, you do need more sea salt, and so that will take care of the flu-like symptoms very quickly, and also weak muscles.
So he's given kind of a broad worldview of practical keto, but as a beginner, we just need a good basic overview. So this is what I found from him for a great overview of keto.
Okay, so here you are, you're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Don't forget about the snacks, right? That's an average person. You're just pretty much grazing the whole day. You got belly fat, fatigue, memory problems, lack of focus, you're craving, high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, and diabetes. But other than that, you're doing pretty good. So what is the common denominator of all these? High levels of insulin. Okay, you have insulin resistance, which is causing high levels of insulin. That's what's creating all these symptoms. So these symptoms are the tip of the iceberg. This is the iceberg, okay? So we have to fix this. The way we do it is through keto, because keto is going to lower the carb and it's going to reduce the insulin, all right? Intermittent fasting works because you're going to eat less frequent, not the amount, but less frequent, because every time you eat, you trigger insulin. So the combination works really good to lower insulin. Okay, so now between day 1 and day 3, you may go through a little transition period, which you're going to feel some symptoms of low blood sugar, and that would be lightheadedness, hunger, and cravings, maybe a headache. But you can actually increase potassium and B vitamins to make it even smoother. Okay, so for this we're going to do 3 meals only, no snacks, because we're transitioning from sugar to fat. The way to do that is you're going to go from one meal to the next. You're going to have to add some fat to satisfy you so you're not hungry. And you have just enough to go from this meal to this meal when you're satisfied. Okay, so you're going to play around with that and adjust that. And by the way, when you're doing a ketogenic diet, you need about 1 teaspoon of sea salt every single day, compared to over here, you need about 1/4 of a teaspoon. Okay, so we need more sea salt, not table salt, to actually prevent fatigue and help your body with the electrolyte sodium and chloride. So now we're going to slowly graduate to 2 meals per day. The way we're going to do that is we're going to take our breakfast and we're going to start to push it forward. In other words, when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, am I hungry? No. Good. Go longer. Keep going longer and longer and longer. Because if you do this right, you wake up at night, you've been fasting all night, and now you're not hungry in the morning. Push it further and further and further until you're at the lunch where you have no more breakfast and you're at 2 meals per day. So that's how we want to graduate slowly. A lot of people that do this, when you measure them, they are loaded with fat and they have low muscle density. They don't have a lot of muscles anymore. They basically have atrophy. And they think it's just all fat, but it's atrophy. So you're going to start growing more muscle, and all this protein is now retaining in the body. It's a little heavier, and that's why you're stopped losing weight, because muscle weighs more than fat, okay? The best indicator for success is your waist circumference, okay? So measure your waist, and that should be shrinking if you're doing this correctly. So you just want to make sure that you're consuming enough lemon juice or lemon in your water, or actual lemons, okay? Lemon is a great thing to help flush that out and counter the effects of stones, gout, and this acid, okay? So I recommend that. And also apple cider vinegar will also help this as well. Tablespoon in some water, drink it with your meals with a lemon, and you're good to go. One thing to note is if you're doing 2 meals, make sure you're not doing low calories. Make sure they're nutrient dense, a little bit more food, so you're actually satisfied. And you're going to do 3 to 6 ounces of protein, unlimited vegetables, and the rest with fat. Another thing is you might end up at the doctor to get your annual checkup and find that your cholesterol is high. Before you freak out and start going on a statin drug, realize fat is composed of triglycerides and cholesterol. So guess what? When you release the fat, your cholesterol has to come out. It has to go through the blood. It may increase temporarily, but the problem is most of the cholesterol in your body is made by your own body. Only 10% comes from the diet. So if you eat more, it makes less. If you eat less, it makes more. Okay, so from here to here, we're between 18 to 23 hours of intermittent fasting, okay? This is where we get into some serious fat burning. We get into something called autophagy. Autophagy is a condition where your cells are recycling old and damaged parts. It's cleaning up bacteria, fungus, candida, and mold. So it's like a self-cleaning action. And your skin's going to start looking better. It's going to be neuroprotective of your brain. You're going to actually have better memory, better mood, better cardiovascular function. And you're going to save a lot of money because you're no longer consuming 3 meals a day or 6 meals a day. You're doing 2 or even 1 meal a day. So you'll save between $300 to $600 a month. So you're welcome.
So now we've established a little bit of that groundwork. Let's get into keto for beginners. That's what you came here for, right?
So let's just start with the basics. What is a ketone? A ketone is not a fat. It's not a carbohydrate. It's not a protein. It's kind of a combination or It has characteristics of both a fat and a carbohydrate, but it's not either. It comes from fat, but a ketone is an alternative fuel source. And the way that you get ketones is you simply lower your carbohydrates in your diet, or you reduce the frequency of eating. And this is why we recommend a low-carb diet with intermittent fasting. Ketones have many advantages versus regular glucose fuel. Number one, it will increase your oxygen in your body. Number two, it increases your energy. Number three, it supports the brain. In fact, your brain prefers ketones over glucose. Same thing with the heart. If your heart is damaged or your brain is damaged, ketones are the answer, and they can bypass the mechanical damage pathways and feed the tissues directly. Your body can make glucose if it needs it from fat, ketones, proteins. You don't need to consume carbohydrates to get glucose. That explains how to get into ketosis. You lower the carb and you lower the frequency of eating. Now, why would you want to do ketosis? What is the big benefit of doing that? Well, you're going to lower insulin, and most people have high insulin. Rarely does your doctor ever test you for insulin. They'll test you for glucose, but not insulin. Too much insulin causes insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is behind prediabetes. Insulin resistance is behind metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, fat in the gut area right through here. And prediabetes leads to diabetes. So in reality, diabetes stems from high levels of insulin at a certain point. And so keto and intermittent fasting will lower insulin. And that is the big benefit of doing this. There's a lot of other benefits too. You can reduce fat in your liver. You can improve your cognitive performance. You can improve your mood. You can help decrease blood pressure, decrease inflammation, improve your energy, and decrease your belly fat. But the real big benefit that allows you to do this eating plan is your hunger goes away, okay? Without being hungry all the time, it makes it really easy to do long-term as a healthy lifestyle. All right, the rule of thumb is don't eat unless you have hunger, okay? Unless you have the sensation of being hungry. Then we have 20% protein, and then we have 70% fat. Now, the fat looks like a lot, but realize fat is basically double the calories of other macronutrients. But if we actually look at an actual plate with your food on the plate, if you just look at it like this, to keep it really simple, half the plate vegetables, okay? A quarter would be protein and a quarter would be fat. But because protein and fat usually come together, that's going to be pretty much half your plate. That's what it should look like. The benefit of the vegetables are the vitamin C, the minerals, other nutrients and phytonutrients, but I wanted to give you the simple overview of all the most important things. So now let's just put it all together. Ideally, when you wake up in the morning, if you keep your carbs low, you're not going to be hungry. So you want to skip breakfast and push it forward to the point where your breakfast now becomes your lunch. So don't eat in the morning. You can do coffee or tea. So ideally, your first meal would be at lunch right here. And then your second meal would be at dinner. So you're doing 2 meals a day. If you keep this within a 6-hour window, that will give you an 18-hour fast. Now, what's really magical about 18 hours is that's when the autophagy starts. So you start getting some really cool benefits. The way that you're going to avoid snacking between the meals is you're going to add a little more fat with this meal and this meal to be able to go longer, okay? And then as you start doing it and becoming more adapted, you can kind of cut back on some of the fat because you're going to be burning your own fat. And your own fat is the healthiest fat that you can burn. But we don't want to snack after the dinner all the way to the next first meal.
Now we've got a good foundation and groundwork laid for this keto thing. Keto means ketosis. So let's hear Dr. Berg explain what is ketosis.
When you avoid consuming glucose or sugar for 10 to 12 hours, your body will then start to make ketones, okay? Ketones are basically the byproduct of fat burning.
And you can even test yourself on ketones. There's these strips you can get at the drugstore called ketone strips. And you check your urine, and it'll be like in a different shade of purple. So if it's really dark purple, it's like major ketosis. If it's light purple, it's minor ketosis. So you can check to see if you're burning fat or not. The thing that you need to know is when we convert our body from sugar to fat, it takes between 3 days to 2 weeks, up to 6 weeks, depending how long you've been running your body on sugar. In other words, your body has to create new machinery in the cells. So it's very similar to, let's say you're running your house on coal to heat it, right? And then we're going to have to run it on electric fuel. Electric heating, I'm sorry, not fuel. You're going to have to install new machinery, hook up wires to be able to run your body. The same thing with running your body on fat fuel. This is like diesel fuel or coal. It's very dirty. This is like solar or electric cars. Very clean, no waste, quiet. But here's the thing, when we run our body on ketones, it's much more stable with your blood sugars. You won't have the highs and lows anymore. So you're going to be very level-headed. Your brain's going to love it. Your memory's going to be sharper. You'll just be right there all the time. Better focus. Ketones are the original fuel source. It's the original fuel of the brain. Our bodies long ago ran on ketones. Why? Because we couldn't necessarily eat all the sugar that we had. We didn't eat 3 meals a day or 6 meals a day. We didn't eat the junk food. So our bodies originally were designed to run on ketones, not sugar. It's only until very recently that we've been eating sugar. So we're going to go back to what your body is designed to run on, and it's much better. I will never go back to running my body on sugar, because once you feel the benefits, you won't go back. Ketosis protects protein. In other words, when you go on this eating plan, you're not going to have to worry about your body eating up your own protein. That's only when you have insulin. So your body's not going to convert protein into fat. So people are always concerned, am I going to lose muscle mass? No, no, no. You're going to gain muscle mass. Your ligaments, tendons, collagen is going to get better.
Man, that's some great information going on. Let's have a little bit more.
When you do this also, you're going to get rid of a lot of excess fluid. Now, sugar always follows fluid, or fluid follows sugar. So if you get rid of all the sugar, you're going to get rid of the fluid as well. Okay? So when you get rid of the fluid, you might lose up to, 10 pounds in the first week. Some people lose 10 pounds. That's fluid. The most fat that you can burn per week is 2 pounds. That's in a healthy body. Anything more, it's just fluid. So anyway, I wanted to kind of explain the time frame it takes, what we're trying to do. We're trying to switch over to ketones. It's a better fuel source.
So that's all the framework that we need right there. Now, the main thing, and one of the best things in life is, what can we eat? Well, guess what? Dr. Berg can tell you right now.
Eggs. I do 4 eggs a day. You can do 2 to 4 eggs. Pasture-raised organic eggs, they're a little more expensive, but they're worth it. Now, it's really important to eat healthy eggs because the factory farm eggs are just so bad. They're just terrible. Then we have avocado. Avocado has tremendous amount of potassium and really good fats to help you go longer. Cheese. Now, if you are a guy and you have a prostate condition, don't do the cheese. But if you have a high quality organic cheese from a grass-fed cow, goat's cheese is even better, not a problem. Okay, so then we have bacon. Some people don't want to do bacon. That's totally fine. I like bacon. I do bacon from the farmer's market. If you're going to go to the health food store, get the nitrate-free organic bacon with sugars less than 1 gram, okay? Bacon, by the way, and pork has high levels of vitamin B1. And for those people that are saying bacon is unhealthy, yet they're consuming chicken, I would beg to differ, because chicken is really disgusting unless you're doing, again, from the farmer's market. Okay, nut butters. You can do almond butter, peanut butter, make sure there's no sugar in it, maybe a couple of tablespoons. Now, the reason for this is to give you enough fat, especially in the beginning, so you can go longer, okay, without getting hungry. You know, you're eating at 12, you have a hamburger or a piece of meat or a lamb or whatever meat that you want, 3 to 6 ounces. Let's say you're younger, and you have a faster metabolism, then you do 8 ounces. Let's say, for example, you're an athlete, you do 8 ounces. Let's say you're a very large person, you need more protein, do 8 ounces. And then we consume our vegetables. You can steam them, you can have some raw, or the salad. I do a lot of salads. We need a large amount of salad, so some people break up their salad between this meal here and this meal, and they do maybe 5 cups and 5 cups, or maybe 4 cups and 4 cups. I mean, 4 cups is not that much. It's kind of like a medium-sized salad. I personally do all of my salad at one sitting. I'll do like 10 cups, and sometimes I'll do more than that. So I'm used to it. If you feel worse with consuming those greens, that means that your microbes are not quite in the right place. You might have a condition called SIBO. Fiber in the vegetable is going to retain fluid, and you're going to feel bloated, and your weight loss is not going to come off. It's not because you're not losing weight, it's because you're retaining fluid. Okay, just realize you want to feel good after consuming this, and you may have to eat small amounts and gradually increase it, because guess who's eating the fiber from your vegetables? The microbes. And they might not be plentiful enough to do that. So there's many different reasons. Olive oil, balsamic vinaigrette is a great dressing, maybe a handful of nuts, some seeds, because we want that fat. So this is like one option of a meal. This is another option of a meal, just to give you an example. Okay, let's say you do fish. I love salmon. Salmon is one of the best proteins because it has omega-3. We want to do quality protein. So you can also do sardines. Believe it or not, there are good fats in sardines. And a fat bomb. What is a fat bomb? It's like a little cookie with healthy fats in it. You can make recipes for this. A lot of people consume a fat bomb just to get them satisfied so they can go from one meal to the next. As your body adapts to fat burning, you probably won't even need that because you're burning your own fat. But in the beginning, it's really helpful. You can do chicken with the skin, preferably, nice and crispy, or chicken wings. Let's say you do, again, 3 to 6 ounces of chicken or chicken wings. You do your protein. It's moderate protein. Asparagus, okay, or any other vegetable that you like, or your salad. And then you do olives as your fat, okay? I do a lot of nuts myself. I do that after the meal to the point where I'm like really satisfied so I can go longer. But the key is not snacking at night. So you want to add enough fat to go from this meal all the way to breakfast. Now, the number one weakness people have, I just realized, was boredom. So you're going to have to keep really busy right here and make sure you're not bored so you don't eat the wrong thing. You can consume your vitamins. It's not a problem any time of the day. Apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon, and some lemon is really good to have when you drink water. Coffee in the morning, try to just do 1. You can do tea. Urge to snack, that means you need more fat and more greens, more vegetables. Those 2 things will solve the problem. If you crave bread, you need more B vitamins. I recommend electrolytes, a good powder, and B vitamins and or nutritional yeast. You can get them in tablets. Very important, just to make this transition smooth so you have no problems. Sea salt, don't be afraid to add more sea salt because you're going to need more salt. You're going to dump more fluid on this program, and so you have to replace it. The best time to exercise is when you're fasting, so in the morning. Okay, it's actually, you'll get better benefits. Realize that it could take longer to adapt, but the way that you know you're in hardcore ketosis is that you crave nothing. You're not even hungry anymore. That's when you know it's really working.
So my approach has changed on keto just a little bit since I've started. I'm doing a little more protein now, but really, like Dr. Berg says, the keto diet is really a high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb diet. So let's talk about the protein part. I've upped mine a little bit, but should you?
So when I talk about 3 to 6 ounces, I'm talking about the actual weight of the whole product as steak, lamb, chicken, or whatever, okay? Take a look at this. So let's say, for example, we have 6 ounces of whole chicken. That's only going to give us 56 grams of protein. 6 ounces of steak is 52 grams. And then lamb, we have 46 grams. These are all the same amounts. Pork, 6 ounces of pork is 44 grams. 6 ounces of salmon is 44 grams. So you can see that they all vary. They're not the same. And then we have 6 ounces of lobster is 32 grams of protein. And then we have 4 eggs, which is 28 grams of protein. Okay, so generally speaking, 1 ounce of any of these protein weighs about 28 grams, but it has on average about between 7 to 8 grams of protein in that total amount. So you can see that they're not the same. Did you get that? So I just wanted to kind of really clarify this one point. So the last thing people want to know is how much protein do you need? That varies depending on your metabolism, your size, your age, how much stress that you're going through, how many body problems you have, your ability to digest that protein. I would recommend experimenting. Okay, so in one meal, you just do 3 ounces, see how you feel. Next meal, you do 6 ounces, see how you feel. Sometimes people need a little bit more. On average, I find that I need about 4 ounces of protein per meal to feel really, really good. And I'm talking about energy, strength, endurance, that type of thing.
So the main component, according to Dr. Berg, of the keto diet is fat. High fat, right? So how about good fat versus bad fat? Does he think there's a difference? Is there a difference? My opinion on this is a little bit varied. I do things a little bit differently than he does, but I'm telling you, his way works. Check it out.
Hi guys, recently I had a question about what are the good fats, what are the bad fats. So I just created a little chart here to quickly run through to show you what would be good and what would be bad, okay? Grass-fed fats, all the animal products, beef, chicken, turkey, are all good. Of course, cheese, grass-fed cheese is really good. Butter, grass-fed butter is good. Grass-fed cream, all that's really good. Olive oil, even though it's omega-6, which is usually inflammatory, olive oil does not create inflammation. So that's a really awesome, good oil. Palm oil is good. Coconut oil is really good. Nuts and seeds have healthy oils. Peanut butter, almond butter, other nut butters are good too. Just make sure it doesn't have sugar in it or any type of additional thing. I like to get peanut butter organic with sea salt. Avocado is awesome. Flaxseed oil is good because even though it helps to balance estrogen, it will not increase estrogen beyond your normal limit. What it does, it gives you more good estrogen and it eliminates the bad estrogen, so the ratios are better. It will not increase more total estrogen than you already have in your body, so you don't have to worry about it. But this is a great omega-3 fatty acid. Sesame seed oil is really good as well. This is good for the blood. Lard, which is from pork, and tallow, which is from beef. So I'm not promoting that you're consuming large amounts of this, but if you're consuming different foods and it's in the pan, it is not a problem at all. The only thing is with people with gallbladder issues, if they consume too much saturated fats, it might aggravate the gallbladder. And these animal products are not grain-fed, they're grass-fed. Wild-caught fish, a totally healthy type of omega-3 fat. Now, I put fish oils in the middle because if you're getting your fish oils from Costco or some large grocery store, it could be pretty rancid, so the quality is not there. So if you want a good fish oil, I would get something that's high quality. I like the virgin cod liver oil the best, but you can shop around for something very high quality. Safflower oil and sunflower oil are right in the middle too. These oils are not a problem. It's just that they're high in omega-6. So if you're consuming a lot of omega-6 and not enough omega-3, it could create more inflammation because omega-6 is inflammatory and omega-3 is anti-inflammatory. Then we get to the bad fats: soy, corn, cottonseed, canola, GMO, and also omega-6. So they're very inflammatory. I would stay away from them. Margarine, stay away from it. It's a trans fat, so it's an altered fat. You're going to see it either partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated. Just stay away from it. It's going to create problems. So be careful about the oils in restaurant foods, especially if they're frying it, because of the amount of soy they use. Now, one point I wanted to make about saturated fats: it's a necessity. It's a beneficial thing. Now, I do want to bring up the fact that people are freaked out about saturated fats, but the Framingham study, which is an extremely large study over a long period of time, the more saturated fats that you eat, the less heart attacks you get. That's a fact, okay? So saturated fats do not create a problem. It's the insulin, it's the sugars that do it. And the other really important fact I want to bring up is that there is no study that connects consuming high cholesterol foods with increasing your cholesterol. okay? Why? Because your body makes cholesterol, and if you eat more, it makes less, okay? That's interesting. And the last point I want to bring up is the plaque that clogs your arteries is actually 26% saturated fats, and the rest of it is unsaturated fats. So you don't have to be afraid of consuming healthy saturated fats. Really, you need to be concerned about the unsaturated ones, especially if they're GMO.
I believe we can all agree we love the fat. And now that we know about the good fat versus the bad fat, how much fat can you have?
So let's just kind of cover that. So we need to create a balance of just the right amount of fat versus too much fat, okay? If you have hypoglycemia, if you have low blood sugars, you're going to need more fat because your main problem is you can't go from one meal to the next without being very hungry. So if there's a blood sugar issue, it's going to take more fat because we want to add enough fat to go from one meal to the next. If you're eating too much fat, what's going to happen? It's going to overload the liver and gallbladder and the pancreas because, see, the gallbladder breaks down the fat into these small particles, but the pancreas releases an enzyme called lipase, which takes it from that small particle down into the smallest particle. So if you have a blood sugar issue and your pancreas is exhausted or you're diabetic, you're not going to be able to produce as many enzymes, thereby stressing the body.
If you like these compilation videos that I've been doing and you haven't subscribed yet, the button just lit up down there for you. Click that and you'll know whenever I make a new video.
So in the beginning, you're going to need a little bit more fat because you haven't fully adapted. The switch between sugar burning and fat burning isn't clean enough. Now, when you do this over a long period of time, you're going to switch very easily to fat burning, sugar burning, back and forth. So the need for fat is going to be less and less. But here's the thing. If you have too much fat, the fat that you're burning that's coming out through ketones in your urine could be the dietary fat, not necessarily your own fat. So even though you're in ketosis, you're not losing weight because you're burning mostly the dietary fat and not your own fat. But if you keep doing it and you keep adjusting the fat to the sweet spot where you can go from one meal to the next comfortably and not overdo it with the fats, you'll start tapping into the fat on your body, and this dietary fat won't be an issue. It won't interfere with your ability to really get into a full ketosis where you're burning off your fat. So you want to combine intermittent fasting with the ketosis, not go crazy with the fats, but have enough to get you from one meal to the next. And if you have blood sugars, you can eat a little bit more, but as you do this over time, it'll be easier and you can cut down on some of the fats and you'll feel comfortable and you won't be hungry and you'll lose weight.
Insulin resistance is definitely a problem we want to avoid. What causes insulin resistance? Dr. Berg goes into 13 things that will spike insulin. You really need to know about this.
We need normal insulin, but we don't need excessive amounts of insulin. So when you have high levels of insulin, it causes the receptor that it's supposed to be received in to downgrade and become resistive and blocked. So that's called insulin resistance. And then it sends a signal back to the pancreas, increasing your insulin. So you have a situation where you have too much insulin, yet it's ineffective, it's not working, okay? Okay, so let's start with number one, sugar. And I'm talking about all the sugars, okay? Like dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, table sugar, brown sugar, raw sugar, honey, all the sugars. Number two, refined grains in the form of breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, things like that. Number three, frequency of eating. Every time you eat, you trigger insulin. So the more times you eat, the worse it is. That's why we do intermittent fasting. Number four, lean proteins will trigger insulin more than fattier proteins. So you don't want to focus on lean, low-fat protein. You want to get the whole fat in there as nature has provided. Number five, excessive protein. Too much protein can trigger insulin. So the optimum amount is between 3 and 6 ounces. If you're a real big guy or you're doing intermittent fasting, you're having less frequent meals, then consume a little bit more. Number 6, soy oil, which most definitely is genetically modified, and even corn oil and other oils as well, but it's sprayed with glyphosate. Okay, this is an herbicide, Roundup Ready, part of the GMO thing. So we want to avoid soy oil because that can trigger insulin resistance and then spike insulin.
Trans fats, that's all the hydrogenated oils. You want to avoid all that. That can actually cause insulin resistance and increase insulin. Cortisol, that's the adrenal stress hormone. And that includes all the medication that has cortisol in a synthetic version, like prednisone shots, cortisol creams, things like that, steroids. Number 9, diuretics. So many people are on high blood pressure medication, and they use a diuretic, which gets rid of fluid. But one of the side effects, it causes insulin resistance, which then increases your insulin, causing more blood pressure. Okay. Number 10, statins. It's a cholesterol medication. Causes insulin resistance, increasing insulin, thereby increasing cholesterol. It's crazy. Number 11, MSG, monosodium glutamate. Another name for that would be modified food starch. It's in so many foods. It's in fast food restaurants. It's in a lot of other restaurants. So if the food tastes a bit too good, suspect MSG and avoid it because it can increase insulin. This is probably why you go to a Chinese restaurant and you eat and an hour later you're starving. Why? Because the blood sugars go down and now you're hungry again. Number 12 and 13 are mineral deficiencies and vitamin deficiencies can set you up for insulin resistance and thereby increase insulin. So low potassium deficiencies, magnesium deficiencies, low sodium or low salt diets can increase the risk of getting insulin resistance. So this is one of the things that doctors recommend, go on a low salt diet, thereby creating higher insulin, which then causes the retention of sodium. It's crazy. Okay, zinc deficiency. You need zinc to make insulin. Zinc is necessary to support the cells that make insulin, the beta cells. In fact, the number 1 cell in the body that absorbs the most zinc is the cells that make insulin, the beta cells. So if you're low on zinc, it can set you up for diabetes. Okay, low chromium can do it. High levels of calcium can cause insulin resistance. Low B1, thiamine. Low vitamin D and low vitamin A. All right, so here you have it. These are the things that can set you up for insulin resistance and increase insulin.
As promised, the keto diet does everything that it's supposed to do. From weight loss, to reversing medical conditions, to many more benefits that I can't even name. And probably many benefits that are unknown at this point. Do you want to know the secret to kicking it up another notch? Intermittent fasting. You may know what that is, but Dr. Berg's got some interesting points about intermittent fasting right now.
It's actually quite simple. I mean, intermittent fasting is basically not eating. Okay, so it's not starving, it's just you're omitting all these frequent meals. It's actually very, very simple. But yes, you can have your supplements. Can I have tea? Yes, you can have your tea. Can I drink water? Yes, you can drink water. You can have some coffee. The point is that a true fast is just water and nothing else, okay? But if we're adding supplements or tea or a little coffee, I'm gonna still consider that fasting and you're not gonna really break the fast. You actually wanna let your body dictate when to feed it, okay? When to eat. And also how long you're gonna go without eating. So the time may vary because you only want to eat when you're hungry. At the first hint of a little slight hunger, people just start eating. I'm like, that's not what we're talking about. Because even in the morning at 8 o'clock a.m., you have a hormonal spike of cortisol. Okay, that's an adrenal hormone. That's a stress hormone. That will make you a little hungry. So you may find right in the morning, wow, I'm hungry, and then that passes, and then you're not hungry. So slight hunger is, you want to just keep going, ignore that. What I'm talking about is a strong hunger. You have stomach pains, you start getting lightheaded, weak, grouchy, okay? That means it's time to eat. The more and more you do this, the more you're gonna go from sugar burning to fat burning more efficiently. That takes time though, okay? So another factor is the estimation of effort it takes to really get into this hardcore. So you're fully in the keto where it's comfortable, you have cognitive benefits, you feel focused, you have concentration, your memory, you can actually learn faster. So that's gonna happen over time. It just might take time because your whole life you've done this way and now we're trying to undo it. And it does take some time. So go into this for the long haul and just give it time. the first thing is, like, let's say if you're doing all these multiple meals per day, you're doing snacks. The first thing is to lower your carbs. Okay, that's number one. That's automatically going to start helping you be less hungry, so you can go longer. And then just let your body dictate when to eat. So you're going to find you can go longer. So you skip the breakfast. Now you're at 2 meals a day, and now you start to squish those together slowly. Okay, let your body tell you when to do it to the point where you're not hungry anymore. So then you just do 1 meal a day. A lot of people are doing this, but you want to work up to it and just kind of keep it really, really simple. Sea salt, very, very important, because if you don't consume enough sodium and you're drinking water, you're diluting a little bit of sodium because you may not have enough reserve in your tank of minerals to draw on through the fasting. So the way that you know that you have enough sea salt is that you're not having any headaches, you're not feeling weak muscles, you're feeling strong. But a lot of people have side effects because they're not doing enough sea salt. Okay, I would do 1 flat level teaspoon a day. You can put that in your food. You can even mix it with water, some of it, not the whole thing, and drink that down. Electrolytes are very, very important too for potassium, magnesium, calcium, and find one with high potassium. And then that will actually also help you have energy through this as well, because when you make the transition, you need these nutrients. You'll also need B vitamins too. So I just want to throw that out there. The last thing I want to talk about is just make sure that you prepare for what you're going to be eating. So let's say, for example, you don't really know when you're going to eat because you're going to go as long as you can until you're hungry. Bring your food with you if you're going somewhere, but just be prepared, because what we don't want to do is be like, wow, now I'm really hungry and I have no more food. Because the problem with intermittent fasting is that the timing of it, sometimes it's hard to time exactly when you're going to eat and coordinate that with other people. So have your food available so you can go to the correct food. I think I uncomplicated the intermittent fasting, and I think I made it easy for you.
I love the way Dr. Berg explains this, intermittent fasting, in the context of fat burning, because it acts like a jet engine for fat burning. How do you unlock the key? Turn on that heat, turn on the afterburners? He's going to tell you.
The other action that I recommend is something called IF. What is that? That's intermittent fasting. What is that? That is it's not a diet, it's a pattern of eating and not eating. So instead of doing 3 meals or 6 meals a day or snacks in between the meals, you're eating less frequently. Why? Because every time you eat, you raise a hormone, insulin. Too much insulin is very dangerous in the body. So what we're trying to do with healthy ketosis and intermittent fasting is reduce the excess of insulin. We're not trying to make it down to 0. We're just trying to get rid of the excess. The vast majority of the population has excess insulin. It's not necessarily focused on lowering calories. Even though you will be consuming less calories, the focus is not on calories. It's about eating less frequently. At the end of the day, we want to provide all the nutrients, so we need a certain amount of calories. The cool thing about intermittent fasting is that because you're eating less frequent, the requirements for nutrients go down because the body starts being conservative with its nutrients. It starts holding or retaining more nutrients. So what you would need for 3 meals a day, okay, as far as nutrients, you would need less nutrients for 2 meals a day, just because the body adapts. Sometimes people are concerned about losing muscle mass. Well, the other cool thing is that when you do intermittent fasting, certain hormones, like growth hormone, increases dramatically to protect the muscles from being lost. Okay, so your body tends to now conserve protein as well when you do intermittent fasting, so you're not going to lose muscle mass. What we're doing when we actually drop carbs and we eat less frequently is we're adapting to fat burning. You're actually making new cellular machinery to run your body on fat fuel, okay, and no longer on sugar. Now, what happens when you consume too many carbs, the insulin comes in and takes it out and converts it to fat. So a lot of the fat on your body right now has came from the carbohydrates. Not necessarily the fat that you ate, but the carbohydrates that you ate. The other thing that people don't realize is this: in the presence of too much insulin, you can't lose this fat. So if you have a stubborn metabolism and you can't lose weight, we know you have too much insulin. Is there a quick test to know if you have too much insulin? Yes. Just look down right now, and if you could see your belly, you have too much insulin. Because these are the main symptoms of high insulin. Belly fat, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatigue, especially after eating, decreased cognitive function, lack of focus, poor memory, moody, irritable, sometimes depressed, grouchy because of the blood sugar issue, cravings for carbs for sure, and you're hungry all the time, especially between meals. When you get your body into fat burning, and now your body is burning fat between meals, because before it wasn't, it was dependent on your diet and dietary sugar. So now when you're burning your own fat, wow, you get rid of the hunger. That's why healthy keto and intermittent fasting is very successful long term, because it allows you to stick to it, because you're not hungry all the time, you're not craving. This is the simplicity right here. If you just envision your plate, okay, this is your plate. Half of the plate should be salad or vegetables, okay? A quarter of the plate should be protein. And the other quarter should be fat. So this 65 or 70% fat, which seems like a lot of fat, now remember, 1 gram of fat is more than twice the calories of carbs and protein. So this is misleading. In reality, the volume of fat is really only, a quarter of your plate. And a lot of this fat is actually mixed with the protein. So it's not as much as you think. And then we have this small amount of carbs out here. Just to keep it really, really simple. Healthy keto and intermittent fasting is not just about weight loss. It's about getting you super healthy, for reducing inflammation, for helping your cognitive function, helping your overall mood, making the body work better.
Everybody loves tips and tricks. Do you want some tips and tricks now? I love tips and tricks, especially about keto. And these are the tips and tricks that I've found that Dr. Berg has come up with to supercharge your keto diet and intermittent fasting.
You wake up in the morning, what do? Well, most people drink a cup of coffee, right? So the first goal is to skip your breakfast. Now, what I normally do is after the coffee, and you can do this before the coffee, I like lemon water, but I take the whole lemon and I blend it with water. I don't take the juice of the lemon anymore. Now it's going to be very, very tart. So you can add, several drops of stevia, or what I do is I put my electrolyte powder in this mixture, like 1 scoop. That way you get the potassium, magnesium, so you have more energy. So we have this super-powered lemon water with electrolytes or without it. That gives you a lot of vitamin C, but it also gives you something called citrates, which help prevent kidney stones. Okay, so now that you're not hungry in the morning, you go all the way to noon and you have your first meal. I recommend doing maybe a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water. Drink that. That will help you digest. It's also going to help your blood sugars, but you don't have to necessarily do it before the meal. You can do it while you're fasting, but apple cider vinegar is a really good thing to take when you're doing this for energy, for blood sugars, to help speed up the improvement of the insulin resistance. I always recommend doing your vegetable or salad before your protein. Why? Because I found that if you're going to do what I usually recommend is between 7 to 10 cups of vegetables per day, which a lot of people can't do that initially, that means you're going to have to do a big salad, right? I mean, a 5-cup salad is not that big. And maybe you could do a 5-cup salad and then for dinner do like 3 cups or 2 cups, right? It's not hard to do that. Now, if you're doing other vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, more dense vegetables, you're not going to be doing 7 to 10 cups, okay? Maybe you do 4 to 5 cups. One thing that I do that actually tastes quite good is I sprinkle nutritional yeast flakes on the salad. It's a way to get my B vitamins through the day, and it will definitely reduce your stress. And it actually tastes a little bit like Parmesan cheese. So it's a great thing to sprinkle on your salad. The 2 major groups of nutrients that I recommend as a bare minimum would be the electrolytes and the B vitamins when you're doing keto, to prevent the keto fatigue, the keto rash, and any other symptoms. Because when you first start this, you're going to dump a lot of water and you're going to lose a lot of electrolytes. And some people get really tired after they do this and they become dehydrated. So we want to put back in the electrolytes. Plus, when you're burning more fat, you do need your B vitamins. And a lot of people are borderline deficient going into this. So they may have fatigue if they don't add the B vitamins. All right. So at the end of the meal, I like to add some additional fat. Why? Because that way I can fast longer and I'm more satisfied. So I might consume a handful of pecans. I might do a whole avocado. I might do macadamia nuts. I might add more olive oil to the salad. I might just have some more butter on my food. But that fat will help you to fast longer. Now, at the end of this meal, some people might feel full, but they might not feel satisfied. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, they have insulin resistance, okay? And that's going to take some time to fix that. And when you have insulin resistance, you just don't pull in the nutrients that much. So you're always going to feel a little unsatisfied. So that tends to cause you to eat more. The other reason why you might not feel satisfied is the food that you're eating is not nutrient dense, okay? When you do grass-fed beef, oh my gosh, it has so many more nutrients than corn-fed beef. And you won't know it until you try it. So even though it might have more of an, I don't know, earthy taste to it or a kind of a different taste, it's way more nutrient dense, more omega-3 fatty acids. There's even phytonutrients in there because the cow has eaten a lot of grass. So we have way more beta carotene and way more retinol, vitamin A and vitamin E, and more trace minerals. I mean, if you think about it, a cow that is fed a lot of corn, that is very unnatural, has much more marbled fatty protein. Like their muscles are more fatty. Well, guess what? Some of these cows develop insulin resistance, and that creates a nutritional deficiency in the cow. And then you eat that meat and you have less nutrition. So ideally, to feel more satisfied, you have more nutrient dense food. So grass-fed beef, seafood is really nutrient dense, especially with the trace minerals. Shellfish is another good one. If you could do liver, that would be good. Eggs, pasture-raised organic eggs are very nutrient dense. Wild-caught fish is more nutrient dense, like salmon, versus a skinless chicken breast or protein powder. There's really two phases to this. The first phase is just to do low carb, even if it's dirty keto. It doesn't matter. Just start doing low carb. The second phase is to increase the quality of what you're eating, okay? And that takes a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more time. So do what you can. Something is better than nothing. So if you have to start doing low carb, and regardless of the quality, do that. So we have this first meal. Now we're going to fast until dinner, okay? Now, a couple of tips for fasting. You can do different types of herbal teas. Green tea is a really good one. Turmeric tea is a really good one to help you fast longer and to spike autophagy, which gives you all these other cool benefits of anti-aging and more brain health. All right, we get to the second meal. You can do another drink with apple cider vinegar, with water to help your digestion, and then do your fat. At this time, maybe you want to do a good handful of sunflower seeds, which gives you a little bit more fat, and the B1. Now, at this time, it might be 6 o'clock, okay? Let's say, hypothetically, you're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I wouldn't recommend if you're older and you potentially might have bladder problems waking up at the middle of the night. I would recommend not drinking past, like, I don't know, 7. So that would be 3 hours before you go to bed. So in other words, drink a lot of water through the day, and definitely maybe after dinner and maybe right at 7, but not drink a lot of liquid like 7, 8, or 9 o'clock, because that sleep is going to be very, very important. And the less water you drink, the better. Now, this is a really key thing between the last meal and before you go to bed. A lot of times, I know this might be hard to believe, they want to snack on foods. And this is the killer for staying in ketosis. The most important tip is to just do not have snack foods in your house. Get these potential tempting snacks out of the house. If you absolutely must eat something, just eat celery. It's crunchy, and that way it'll give you something to chew on. But boy, this is a real problem for a lot of people. So if you do what I said, eat nutrient-dense foods and more fat at the end of the meal, your chances of snacking will be less. If you don't sleep well, you're going to find that you're going to crave in the morning because it's going to increase cortisol. You'll be more stressed. It's going to be harder to get the results that you want. It's going to affect your metabolism. So a couple little tips for sleeping. During the day, if you can exercise, that would be awesome because exercise will deplete your energy. It improves your blood sugars. It will help your sleep. If you can exercise outside or be outside during the day, that's also going to be important because the exposure to the sun is going to give you a lot of melatonin. Melatonin is going to help you sleep. So if possible, ideally, you want to get at least 1 hour of exposure to the sun, not necessarily being in the direct sunlight, but just being outside. Not to mention getting the vitamin D. Vitamin D helps your sleep. So during the winter, if you're not getting enough sun and you want to spike your sleep, take about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 right before sleep. Okay, that's going to help your sleep cycles. And if you have this excessive thinking before bed, B1 before sleep. Very, very effective. So we want to limit too much protein at the second meal, especially to help you sleep, because if you're sitting on a tremendous amount of protein that's undigested, it's going to affect your sleep. Make sure you get enough melatonin by getting sun. Don't take the melatonin supplement, okay? That's going to create another problem. Get your melatonin from the infrared wave from the sun, and then you have the B1 and then the D3. All right, and I forgot to mention this with exercise. To maintain energy with exercise, you need your electrolytes, especially sodium, okay, and potassium. So make sure when you do this keto that you start adding more sea salt to your meals. If you don't, you'll be deficient in sodium, and that's going to make weak muscles. You're going to feel like, wow, I just don't have the energy to exercise. It's usually low sodium, which is very easily handled by putting more sea salt on your foods. Now, as far as the potassium, that's another electrolyte that's going to keep your energy up, and you're going to get potassium and magnesium from your salads and the electrolyte powder. And I even want people to feel the difference by adding just more sea salt and potassium to how much more effective their exercise is in endurance, strength, and the desire to exercise versus being deficient in those two. Boy, it's dramatic. You just don't feel like working out. You don't have the energy. You're dragging all day. We don't want you to plateau, right? It's the little things that make a big difference. For example, one way to knock yourself out of ketosis is by doing the diet artificial sweeteners, okay? They can really mess you up. So that's a really important point. The other point is there's hidden sugar in even keto-friendly bars, desserts, snacks, yes. And even though you might be below the 50 grams of carbs, maltodextrin, dextrin are not classified as sugars, believe it or not. Don't trust it. Read the ingredients first. In fact, if you can avoid the keto snacks altogether, you're probably going to be in better shape. Also, the so-called keto electrolyte powders out there have maltodextrin hidden in their natural flavorings. Yes. So that's another thing that I didn't even know until probably a year and a half ago, but they use maltodextrin as a spray agent to dry out certain flavorings. So I had a hard time finding a company that didn't add the maltodextrin to the ingredients, both in the citrate form of the minerals as well as in the natural flavorings. So maltodextrin is worse than sugar, it's worse than glucose. It's like really high on the glycemic index. All right, a couple other things. Honey is sugar, okay? Avoid it. Read ingredients with honey and avoid it. And there's a lot of other forms of sugar like date sugar and coconut water. There's a lot of sugar in that. And so realize just a little bit of that sugar or carb can knock you out of ketosis for a considerable amount of time, up to 48 hours. So if you're wondering why you're not getting results because every other day you're having these hidden sweeteners, that's why. You see, the goal is to get you to do this right long enough for you to feel what you should feel like as far as the energy, the cognitive benefits, not just the weight loss,
but just feeling really good, because that healthy feeling, that feeling of wellness, the feeling of being energetic is so, so important, especially as you get older. You'll find out it's very valuable. Last few tips. The best indicator to know that this is working is your appetite. Okay, your appetite goes away, not weight loss, because it's get healthy, then lose weight, not lose weight to get healthy. So one of the best indicators of getting healthy is switching over to burning your fat. That's a very, very healthy state that's going to create a lot of additional health benefits. So the loss of appetite means that you're doing this, okay? So go by that as the most important thing, especially when you start out. Don't weigh yourself too frequently, because we don't want to focus on your weight, okay? We want to focus on energy, appetite, cravings going away, and then your clothes feeling looser. And last little point, if this is overwhelming, something is better than nothing. Just do low carb, okay? Or just do fasting as a starting entry point, because even if you have to start with dirty keto and do the Atkins bars to help you, which is loaded with a bunch of crap, but at least it's below 50 grams of carbs, that would be better than nothing.
Dr. Berg's got some incredible insight into how to start keto as a beginner. Another person definitely worth watching is Dr. Ken Berry. And if you haven't seen my video about him and 11 things that I learned from him, I'm going to put it right over here so you can watch that one next. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.